Frid och shalom och välkomna till en uppdatering vi lägger in nu. Detta klipp är så omskakande så det måste ni bara se. Håll till godo. Amen.
If you get a chance to do that. So here's where I want to tap into your latest book, obviously, that you kind of mentioned that you're going to be speaking about this next week, but in that latest book that you had and DVD, that Klaus Schwab and Joe Biden and the planned destruction of America. So you were suggesting in that book and in that DVD that if Hitler were alive today, he would use a more subtle approach to global domination. So kind of explain to the audience what you mean by that, the strategies about what they're doing with, putting their people in place and positioning things.
Yeah, just to give a backdrop, our latest study, which really is what I call the big finale of our Schwabing the Deck series about Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. This is the latest one, the big finale. Okay, what about America? What's the World Economic Forum's plan for America? But what started it all was a deep dive that I did, the first one on Klaus Schwab and the Third Reich. Okay. And basically, I did a deep dive on, because I had a suspicion, I ran with it, and it paid off. And I'm going like, wait a second, this guy's plan for total domination, and certainly his accent, certainly sounds German to me. What's going on here?
Right.
And so I knew a little bit about the Third Reich, but I went even deeper. And so I studied as deep as I could about, okay, what would Hitler have done if he could have pulled off and won World War II? Because he wanted to bring the Third Reich to the planet. So I took a look and I categorized all the goals of the Third Reich, what he was going to do, Hitler. And then I just did a polemic study on what is this Great Reset and Klaus Schwab wanting to do. Pastor Brandon, I am not kidding you. It was tit for tat all the way down the line. And all Klaus Schwab did was relabel it. And it's not a surprise. No, seriously. The Third Reich, really, what's going on, it should be called the rise of the Fourth Reich. But Klaus switched it just a hair, and it's called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Or the Great Reset. Right. He just scrambled it a little bit. Sure. And then we went, and that's no conspiracy. His dad was buddies with the Nazis, and he ran a factory where Klaus grew up as a young man, and his dad won awards, helped the Nazis build armament and things of that nature, and all this stuff. So this is the world that he grew up in. So basically, after going that deep dive, it really gave me personally the game plan. So now all you got to do is follow Hitler's script. And then that tells you exactly what Klaus and the gang are going to do. Just pay attention. They're going to tweak the words a little bit. And that's all they do. And so here's my point. So that really shows us that it's just Hitler part two. Hitler tried with a physical military frontal assault to bring about the Third Reich. It didn't work. He lost the war. Klaus learned the lesson, in my opinion, that, okay, that doesn't work. Too many people are going to resist. So he took the slow approach. Right? And his slow approach was, okay, instead of a full frontal military assault, let's slowly behind the scenes plant SS agents around the world in every developed country, and then get them in key positions, and then use something to start the process, and everything and everybody will act in lock and step with what Klaus wants to do and take over every developed country. That's literally what has happened. Now, I call them SS agents because that's what I really believe they are, but that's not a theory. In 1971, Klaus Schwab started the World Economic Forum. And since then, he has been training, quotes, young global leaders to do his bidding for over 50 years. Do the math. And so that's why I said it's the slow game. And so 50 years, he's been training people to follow his will, the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, really is the rise of the Fourth Reich. And then he's been planting them all over every single developed country. And then, admittedly, and it's still on their website, the World Economic Forum's website, they admit that the pandemic was the trigger to begin to put the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, in place to create a crisis, you manage the outcome. So this time, they did a different tack. It's not a full frontal military assault. That didn't work. It's been a slow invasion in getting SS agents around the world in key positions who will do what Schwab wants to do, and it's game over. And that includes, and that's why we had the big finale, that includes our own country. We've got Joe Biden on tape being introduced by Klaus Schwab. And this is how Schwab, and it's on tape, I can't believe it. Here's how Schwab introduces Joe Biden. He said, "You have been one of my hardest working disciples." That's a direct quote of Joe Biden on tape.
Oh my
then
goodness.
Joe Biden gets up and does a speech on the coming Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, really the rise of the Fourth Reich. And he talks about this, the new digital, economy and reality that's coming, right? Yeah. And that's the Great Reset. They want to, and again, that's why Biden was brought in, because there's two sides to the Great Reset. The first side is it's an economic reset. They want to take over the world.
Sure.
And they want to bring in a digital cashless society that will then be able to control people on steroids. And it specifically is biometrically tied into people, into that system, which led to our second resource, Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, and the coming Mark of the Beast. It's the digital infrastructure for the Mark of the Beast system. The Bible's the only book on the planet that calls it for what it is. They can call it the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, blah, blah, blah. It's really the rise of the Antichrist kingdom. But this is why Biden was brought in, right? This is why 2 years ago in March, he signed the executive order for America to go digital. They're just waiting for the right crisis. And I'm convinced the right crisis is a purposefully scenario to destroy the American economy. This is why the very first day when he got into office, what was the first thing he did? He shut off the pipelines.
That's true.
Why? Because historically, secular economists will admit any thriving economy, any thriving nation has to have bare minimum cheap, readily available oil and energy. And so if you want to destroy an economy, and these are seculars saying this, then you have to get rid of their access and the ability to get cheap energy. Well, that's what he did. And then people see, this is the smokescreen that people need to realize. You know, you got Biden, he can't walk, and you got Kamala, she can't talk. And people going like, well, man, what a bunch of wackos that keep making dumb decisions. No. They're not just making dumb decisions, they're making deliberate decisions to purposely destroy our economy, because once you understand the plan, then it all makes sense. Oh, the first half of your Great Reset is we have to crash the global economy to reset it with our new Hitlerian economy. Well, then therefore what has to go? America. That's why Biden was brought in. That's why they cheated. That's why they made sure he had to get into place. And I'm telling you, that's why they made such drastic moves when he was so bad tanking it in the polls, and there was no way he was ever going to win this election. That's why they got so drastic. And prior to that, remember the talk? Everybody was saying, Harris, who would ever vote for Harris? Harris, whatever. And then all of a sudden, they kick Biden out, and all of a sudden, she's the miracle child. Because they have to finish the job. They need the next election cycle to finish the job. And they have a goal. They want to have all this in place that we're talking about by 2030. And so they have to have another hireling. Harris is a hireling. We expose her. She's been working since she's been in the White House. She's been working, pushing the Great Reset agenda all over the world. Her husband, Doug Imhoff, he gives speeches at the World Economic Forum. They're all coming from the same root. And once you get that, then you go, oh, this is what it's really all about. And that's why we plan. It's not just the destruction of America, it's the planned destruction of America.
Good point.
If these guys get in round two, it's over, Pastor Brandon.
Well, I got a lot of questions I want to ask you, and that's phenomenal information that you have there. I got to come up to a break right now, but Pastor Billy, what I want to do on the other side of the break, and this is kind of a teaser for everybody, I want you to talk about these parallel strategies. And you mentioned that they have to destroy the economy. But what did you find in your research that parallels with what Hitler was doing, with what Klaus Schwab is currently doing? What are those parallels that you see of him creating basically another Reich? And so we'll take a break right now, and we'll talk about that on the other side, okay? So, guys, explaining what's been going on in America for the last, I don't know, several decades now, and especially with the Joe Biden administration and what's going on there, but the planned destruction of America and bringing in the Great Reset. So, Pastor Billy, I want to pick up where we left off. And the question I have for you then is, with you doing all this extensive research, what parallels did you see with what we saw with Hitler and what he was trying to accomplish and what Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum are trying to accomplish?
Yeah, well, again, it was just tit for tat. You just go down the list of how did Hitler even get into power? How did he dupe the people? And again, it was promises of utopia, but it was on the back of a major economic crisis that Hitler was going through. And it sound familiar?
Yeah, real familiar.
Right. So that's step number one. So they learned that works. It worked with the German people. So they, put in a crunch time and it's like, savior, a new plan is in place and we're going to fix it all for you. Just let the government, the Third Reich do it for you. That was the first thing. The second thing that they also promised people was visions of utopia that and I'm not making this up. This is in print. This is in print. I'm going like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
Did you know that Hitler was an environmentalist? Hitler was going to, I'm not joking. It's in print, Pastor Brandon. I couldn't believe it. I'm going, you've got to be joking me. It's everything they're messaging, the green message and all this. It's straight out of Hitler.
Wow.
Hitler promised that he was going to get rid of pollution. Hitler promised that he was even going to take care of healthcare and get people to stop smoking. Even back in those days, folks, he was going to get rid of all the dangerous chemicals and things of that nature. And he was going to, save the animals. And he was just going to bring about a great utopia. And they were going to create this wonderful utopia on earth. It's the exact same thing that Hitler did. These guys are promoting the Green Party, the Green New Deal, and all this baloney. It came from Hitler. Most people don't know it. Why? Because you don't know your history. And if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's what they're doing. So that was another one. Another one that blew me away was the transportation system.
Okay.
Right? Biden's bill, infrastructure, whatever, what a pork belly that was.
Yeah,
and
right.
A pack of lies. But anyway, Hitler said that in part of his utopia, and he's going to save the environment, he's going to save the planet, save the animals, same baloney. In this wonderful utopia, as long as you just let him take control. Yeah. On the backs of an economic crisis, he promised everybody would get two things in his new Third Reich.
Okay.
Everybody would get their own car, and listen, including their own flying car.
What?
Wow. Wait, what are you saying here? First of all, it was called the People's Car.
Okay.
Okay. In German, you know what it is?
Is that Volkswagen?
Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Beetle was the people's car. Everybody was promised that you let Hitler bring in this utopia. We'll all have great transportation. It'll be great for the environment. Everybody will have a car to own, as well as a flying car. There was another one that they were working on. And then, so you know what the modern day people's car is to help save the environment? It's called the Tesla.
Oh, there you go. An electric car. Okay.
Electric car, right?
Yeah. Sure.
And just as a side note that people need to be forewarned, Elon Musk is not a friend of America. Yeah. Elon Musk is one of these guys who's helping Klaus Schwab bring about this digital prison planet. And so we expose that as well. Okay. And so the whole transportation system, we're going to do that. Of course, Hitler promised housing and we're going to take care of you and all that stuff. Yeah. And then Schwab's doing the same thing. 15-minute cities. Sure. Everything's going to be provided for you. So it's all carbon copy of what he did. But the way that he really got for those, because some people even back then, they were going like, hey, wait a second, man, this guy's sound like a dictator, man. You could say utopia, save the planet, save the animals. We're all going to get a people's car. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. You're going to rise us out of the ashes of all this economic morass. And the two are like, well, no, you're starting to sound like a dictator. Well, Hitler, to push people over the edge and force himself into power, and then now it's too late. And then here comes the Gestapo and the SS agents for anybody that disagreed. Then that's the same thing that he used what was called the Reichstag fire. Yeah. And if you look at the Reichstag fire, basically that was an event. It was a staged event. Yeah. Okay. That became the excuse. See, this is why we have to give Hitler power to do this. And so it's create a crisis, manage the outcome. So that's the same thing. The pandemic was the Reichstag fire for the world and things of that nature. And then destroying our economy. This is the crisis to get people who even realize that something something's not right here, to bow a knee. So that's another one. Hitler also took over everything, right? Today we call this the government is taking control of everything. Well, Hitler did the same thing. He took over the educational system once he got into power, and they only taught what he wanted them to teach.
Oh, boy.
He took over the media, right? That's Joseph Goebbels, right? Yeah. And then he used the media to brainwash people to think that what he was doing was fantastic. He took over the healthcare system. Is any of this starting to sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds like America, man.
Thank you. And that's why I said it. Pastor Brandon, once you find out the game plan, then all you got to do is follow the map and then pay attention. They've just relabeled it, but it really is Hitler's agenda. That's, again, why I call it, it should be called the rise of the Fourth Reich, but that's too obvious.
Yeah.
So just call it the rise of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Right. That sounds better, doesn't it? Right. And so, and on it goes, tit for tat. That's what these guys are doing. And then with the control of the media, the schools, the economy, people's livelihoods, that's when the clamps begin to come down. That's when the true colors begin to come out. Anybody that disagreed began to disappear. Now, we're not at that stage yet.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, our voices have disappeared because you try saying anything that these guys don't want to have out there in the media. You and I have been dealing with this for a long time. What happens? You're silenced.
Yeah. We get our programs taken down.
Right. When we released this book, we had a long standing relationship with our original book publisher, written over 70 books now. And then they're not all on prophecy. As you know, as a pastor, I teach on a bunch of other stuff.
Sure.
Right. But Amazon complained to our publisher about this book, Klaus Schwab and the Rise of the Third Reich.
Really?
And the publisher pulled the plug on us.
Oh, no.
And the only reason why only reason why I found that out was because they made a fatal mistake.
Okay.
They forgot to erase the thread from Amazon.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. And Amazon complained and said, you better do something about this, in essence. And so our publisher said, we're done with you. Now, long story short, Romans 8:28, God works all things together for good. It basically led us to having now our own book publishing equipment that we have. So you can bark all you want. You can't stop us now. And so it actually ended up better. Plus, once people found out, and here's my point, they didn't want this to get out.
Yeah.
And once people found out that we basically, our ministry was a victim of cancel culture, all it did was stir people's interest even more. Sure. What's in those books about Klaus Schwab that Amazon doesn't want us to know, right? And so it all blew up in their face. But my point is, it's the same thing. I just did an interview last week with J.B. Hickson.
Okay.
And we were talking about the witchcraft that's in the White House, which includes Biden and, of course, Harris and all that stuff.
Sure.
And we traced that trail. There's a spirit behind this, and it's not from God, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And I kid you not. So basically, I go to repost that interview, just the link, just the link to Facebook. And this is the first time it's happened this fast. Instantly, Pastor Brandon, within seconds, maybe only 2 to 3 seconds, instantly it was deleted and completely banned from Facebook.
Really? Wow. And did they give you any notification or anything?
No, nothing. Just we're doing it, and of course you violate our standards. And of course you always hit, well, review, that's not true, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It never changed anything. But this has been going on for several years with us with YouTube. You've experienced that.
I have too, yes.
Right. But this was the first time Facebook literally in seconds refused to let this information out, which again is basically the contents of this latest study. And so here's my point. That's what Hitler did.
Sure.
And that's what I say. We live in America spelled with a K now. These guys, it isn't just Klaus Schwab's SS agents are in the White House with Biden and Harris in the gang. It's Jeff Bezos is a part of this.
Yeah.
I mentioned Elon Musk is a part of this.
Yeah.
Corporations, media moguls, they're all a part of this. They've all been hirelings of Klaus Schwab. That's why, just like Hitler did, once they got into power and positions of control, they controlled everything. The next step will be you don't just lose your voice, you disappear.
Yeah. Well,
and that's the reality.
That's the scary part. And that's the playbook, right? And it seems like when you look at all these guys that have been trained by Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum, they all are playing on the same playbook. So whether I go to Macron in France or I deal with my crazy governor, Newsom, he was trained by Klaus Schwab.
Right.
They're all doing the same playbook. So let me ask you this, and I don't know if there's an answer to this. Why do you think all of them bow a knee to Klaus Schwab? Why are they following his orders? Why is he the ringleader? Because to me, on a human level, Pastor Bailey, this guy has no power whatsoever. I mean, yeah, he's the head of the World Economic Forum, but why would I, if I'm Elon Musk or if I'm Gavin Newsom, bow a knee to this guy? What's your theory on this? What have you discovered?
Well, a couple of things that I would say is, one, when you understand the spiritual element behind it, and again, we expose that, witchcraft at the World Economic Forum, witchcraft in the White House.
Yeah.
There is a spiritual element, and it's part of what I came out of New Age and the occult.
Okay.
And so it's a Luciferian organization. I'm not joking. That's not hyperbole.
Yeah.
It's a Luciferian organization, and they're bringing about Satan's utopia. And the Bible is the only book on the planet that says, no, that's the Antichrist kingdom.
Yeah.
And so there's a spirit behind it, and it's not from God, number one. Number two, the old phrase, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys, it's not enough just to be the president of the United States. It's not enough to just be in Congress. It's not enough to be one of the richest people on planet Earth. They want even more power. And then the other one, the third element, as the scripture says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil.
Good point.
And these guys have basically sold their soul to the devil, also known as basically Klaus Schwab and the gang.
Right.
And I mean that tongue in cheek, but really they sold their soul to Klaus Schwab, because this is what they're promised, Pastor Branham.
Okay.
They are promised that they will get at the top of the pile while the rest of us are down here. And so you work with us, and then we'll make sure that you and your family, you'll be fine. And you'll be one of the, quote, elites. And then that's what they're doing. It's basically like they sell their soul for an insurance policy that when the crash happens deliberately, that, hey, they'll be fine. They'll be one of the rulers somewhere. They'll be rewarded by Klaus Schwab. And they don't have to worry about it. So I think it's a combination of motives.
Pastor Billy, there's no other way I can explain this from a human level of why everyone would be cooperating on such an anti-human, anti-civilization theme with what Klaus Schwab is pushing. Like you say, it's coming from Hitler, but really it's coming from the father of lies. And so kind of delve into that, what you have discovered, and kind of let's unearth that for everybody.
It's interesting, as you're saying that, it reminded me of an interview that I have on file from Nelson Rockefeller. And he was trying to convince, this is on tape, and he was trying to convince another gentleman that he had befriended to go along with basically microchipping the whole planet for purposes of control. And basically, if you don't do what they say, they're going to shut off your chip.
Okay.
What does that sound like? And so, but basically the guy, he called Nelson on it as they were having another meeting over dinner. And he says, I'm getting concerned about this. He says, why would you do this to the planet? I mean, you've got more money and more power than anybody. And why would you want to microchip the planet and then, control people in such a manner? And Rockefeller looks at him and says, what do you care about that? You just care about your family and yourself. And all that niche, but that's their mentality.
Wow.
That's their mentality. Is as long as they're at the top of the pile, who cares? We're going to do this. But this was the other deep dive that we did, and because I'm going like, there's got to be a reason why they're doing this, right? There's a spirit. Now, again, where did I discover the clue? The clue was back with Hitler, and the Third Reich. Hitler was not only an evolutionist. And that's why one of the reasons why he was wanting to annihilate the Jewish people. The Jewish people were at the bottom of his evolutionary list. Hitler wanted to create what was called the Aryan race, a new and improved race, part of his Third Reich utopia. But the way to get to a pure race, an improved, better humanity, then he began to start with those who were at the bottom of his evolutionary list. And guess who was at the bottom of the list? The Jewish people. He believed that the Jewish people were close to pure ape.
Are you serious? Wow.
And this is documented. And then, but see, if he would have finished with that, he wasn't done. This is what people don't realize. He would move up to the next scale, second to the last, and that's the Black African people. He would have been to systematically annihilate. Then he'd move up to the Oriental people.
Okay.
That he felt were like kind of half ape, half human.
Wow.
Right? And then on up until he was left with the Aryan race.
Okay.
So there was a bigger plan, which, by the way, that's ended up with our third resource, Klaus Schwab, Eugenics and the Rise of the Nephilim.
Okay.
The second half of the Great Reset is a human reset. These guys want to do the same thing that Hitler did with eugenics and create a master race. Now, you can't call it Aryan race because that's too obvious.
Sure.
Right? So they've relabeled it. It's called Human 2.0, Augmented Humanity, or the Post-Human Species. No joke. This is what's going on. So even that, they're copying Hitler as well. But in this other, he's an evolutionist. Hitler was an evolutionist, but Hitler, he was a heavy-duty occultist.
Okay.
In fact, this was very interesting. The swastika is an old symbol. It did not start with Hitler. It's actually been around for a long time in different religions, especially the Hindu religions and in Tibet, the Tibetan Buddhists, the black magic monks. That was one of their symbols for black magic. Also, the SS. A lot of people believe that the SS was the symbol was two S's. It's two lightning bolts. And they symbolize, it's an occult symbol still used to this day, an occult symbol, the lightning bolt, symbolizing Satan falling from heaven like lightning, that. Okay. And so basically Hitler, nobody caught it because they weren't equipped on occult issues. Hitler was so bold about being involved in the occult, he even had it on his soldiers' uniforms and with the SS and with the swastika. Those are occult symbols. Wow. That should have been your first clue, but most people don't do it. Got to get it. And so, but Hitler himself was involved in the occult, and we trace that down. Hitler relied on occult powers to get him into power. One of them, and this is still in print, even the heretical channel, I mean the History Channel, they even admit this. Hitler, early on, relied on what was called the mandrake root. Okay. And the mandrake root, we did a 66-week study on the occult. We brought all this stuff out. Wow. And so the mandrake root is an old-fashioned occult root that they believe has supernatural powers, and that you can utilize that thing to do all kinds of stuff, they believe, which, by the way, is also mentioned in the Harry Potter series and things of that nature, straight up witchcraft. But it's in the Bible too. Yes, and he was given this mandrake root, and he wore it around his neck, and this guy was working with him. There was two major occult people that helped Hitler get into power. And Karl Haushofer, he was one of them, and the Society of the Golden Dawn was another one. And they admit that we're the power behind Hitler, and we're going to make sure he gets into power. Wow. But he wore that mandrake root to give him occult powers, and mysteriously he starts winning and gaining popularity. And then people said, historically, when you heard Hitler speak, and this is from the people, there was something supernatural going on. When he got up to speak, it was like an otherworldly voice, and he was able to mesmerize a crowd like nobody. And because I believe that Hitler was demon possessed. Okay. And also, this is in historical account, towards the end of Hitler's days, a lot of his aides, and this is in historical account, I'm not joking, they said that oftentimes they would find him in his room in a dark corner, sweating profusely, shivering, mumbling like an idiot, basically saying, they're here, they're coming to get me. I mean, this guy was demon possessed. So he was involved in the occult. So anyway, that's what I discovered when I went down the Third Reich. So I'm going, wait a second. Could it be that Klaus Schwab, once again, like everything else you're seeing, is also involved in the occult and using occult powers to get him and others into office? Yep, exactly. And that's what we bring out in this study: witchcraft in the World Economic Forum, witchcraft in the White House. And so I traced it down, and they're basically, you can call it New World Order, you can call it Great Reset, you can call it the Age of Aquarius, you can call it the Fourth Industrial Revolution, all you want. But basically, it's a Luciferian order that started with a lady in the late 1800s, Madame Blavatsky.
Yes. Okay.
This is where your Luciferian order comes in.
Okay.
And she basically published a magazine, an article or whatever, that basically the Lucifer Journal, and and she was possessed and had demons speak through her, and they told her that Lucifer's a good guy, and that Christians got it wrong, and that if we listen to his plan, then we'll be able to fix the problems on the planet and bring in a utopia. It's the Luciferian order.
Huh.
So that's, in a nutshell, it's called theosophy.
Yeah.
Theos, God, Sophos, wisdom, God, wisdom. It's from Satan.
Right.
And so basically, from her, she passes the baton to Annie Besant. Annie Besant gets connected with more demons, and then she added another layer to this Luciferian message, and that was, we've got too many people on the planet.
Oh.
And we need to annihilate. Yeah, here comes your population control.
There you go.
We need to annihilate. And why is this a shock? It's not a shock because Jesus said Satan's a liar and he's been one from the beginning. The father of all lies, including this one, that Satan's a good guy. And he's a murderer and he's been one from the beginning. So that's no surprise that he wants people to murder mankind. He hates us.
Sure.
But then she gets hooked up with guess who? Margaret Sanger.
Oh, there you go. That's a familiar name.
Exactly. The Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood in print, she wanted to get rid of the Negroes and the other quote she called misfits and weeds, right?
Wow.
And so that was part of the eugenics program back in the day. But that came from Blavatsky, Annie Besant. Then it passes the baton to another lady called Alice Bailey.
Yeah,
now,
I've
Alice
heard her.
Bailey's
Yeah.
bingo, very important because here comes your UN connection. Right? Because she is still to this day, Alice Bailey, she started what was called the Lucifer Publishing Company. Well, that was a little too obvious. So then they changed it to Lucis Publishing. And then now today, still to this day, Lucis Trust. Right? And still to this day on their website, you can see that they are hand in hand working and have been for decades with the United Nations.
Sure.
I filmed inside the United Nations.
Okay.
I actually secretly was able to get inside their meditation room.
Oh no! Wow.
Yes, and so we got that on tape. And
Okay.
and on the inside, most people don't see the inside of the UN. On the inside, they don't hide it, man. It's all about one world religion, one world government. But it's not. It's a Luciferian order. That's what they're following. Lucifer's order from Blavatsky way on. And so basically, then it gets connected with a gentleman. His name is Maurice Strong.
Okay.
Maurice Strong was a long-time standing leader in the United Nations.
Okay.
Guess who was lifelong buddies with Maurice Strong, who's following this Luciferian order that we need to bring in a one world government, a one world religion, under a one world leader. Satan's a good guy, and he's going to bring peace to the planet. Guess who was his lifelong buddy? Klaus Schwab.
Oh, no.
I couldn't believe it, man. I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. So the reason why, right. And so again, they call it Great Reset, call it the Fourth Industrial Revolution, even the New World Order. You trace the trail. It's a Luciferian a counterfeit to what Christ promises in the millennial kingdom when he comes back.
Sure.
It's basically Satan's version of follow this man who's the Antichrist. That people will look upon the Savior, listen to Lucifer, and he'll bring peace to the planet. Wow. It's a total counterfeit.
Yeah.
It's a ripoff of what Christ will bring.
Sure.
Right? And so it's just like Satan, right? And so there's that. And then that was just the World Economic Forum. Then we traced the trail with all the demonic stuff that's going in the White House and has been, frankly, to be honest with you, both sides of the aisle for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it's no shakes that they work together so well because they're all coming from the same spiritual root, and it is not the Spirit of God.
Well, that's the only thing I can come up with. I mean, you've done extensive research on this, but just on the outside looking in, and any person out there that's listening to the broadcast that's a Christian, you would have to step back and say, wait a second, man, this is not human. I mean, Pastor Billy, every policy that comes out of the White House is anti-human.
Yeah.
I don't see who it benefits. You know what I mean? And so I'm thinking to myself, it's got to be Luciferian. And so you've hit the nail on the head, and you've traced it. Now, what I'm curious about is what's been going on in the White House, and I'm sure my audience is curious about what's been going on in the White House. with this Luciferian thing. I remember studying a little bit about Hillary Clinton, and John Podesta being involved in spiritual cooking and weird stuff like that, you know, very satanic things. But here's the thing. I'm going to give a tease. I got to take a break. But on the other side, I want you to explain what's been going on in the Biden administration, or however long in the White House. We've had these Luciferian things going on to give people a better idea that, hey, you know what? This is beyond human. There's something else going on here that's you can only explain spiritually. So we're going to take a couple. What's happening in the world as far as the Great Reset, about the Fourth Reich, the continuance of Hitler's plan now coming to fruition through Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and all their devotees. And we've been now talking about how it's stemming from a Luciferian concept of a counterfeit kingdom and a counterfeit Christ, and Pastor Billy's been talking about that. So now, Pastor Billy, I want you to go into a more personal thing in America, because we know it's been happening in Europe, it's been happening around the world, but what's been going on in our White House? Because I know you've done some research on the background of the I don't know what you want to call it, demonic activity that's been going on?
Yeah. In a nutshell, when Trump said we need to drain the swamp, I'm convinced he forgot one word. We need to drain the occult swamp.
Oh, okay.
It is really that bad. And it's been that bad for a long time. Now, just as a segue, I didn't plan on this. This is the way it came out. I mentioned we'd done a 66-week study on the occult. It ended up being 66 studies with 6 books. Go figure.
Go figure that one.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did I'm just sharing this if people want to get more information. We did a 20-week study on witchcraft and the rise of Wicca. Okay. We also did a 16-week study in book or DVD on all this stuff. 16-week study on Satanism. And then we did a 30-week study on voodoo, vampires, and the rise of demon worship. And things of that nature. And but basically, we summarized a lot of that into this. Again, witchcraft in the White House and witchcraft in the World Economic Forum. We talked about the World Economic Forum, but that's what we have in this resource as well. And but basically, the White House has been messed up for a long time. And again, I wasn't looking for this particular thread, but I came across it. And I said, well, hey, that's interesting. Let's go down that rabbit trail. Okay. And basically what I discovered, unfortunately, Pastor Brandon, when they use the phraseology that we're in a battle for the soul of America, they ain't joking. And then you wonder how in the world could America go down the hill so fast and become so anti-God, anti-Jesus, anti-Bible in such a short period of time? Because we are infested with people who are into demon worship, Satan worship, and it's no joke. This is really what's going on. This is why it just keeps getting worse and worse, and anti-Christian. But anyway, but what I discovered was back with President Pierce, way back then, just prior to Abraham Lincoln, his wife, Jane Pierce, they lost their son. And at that time in America, before we had the Second Great Awakening, which we were desperately in need of a spiritual revival, part of that was there was the craze around America and Europe. It came over from Europe. There was a craze of what was called spiritualism. Spiritualism is basically Ouija boards, seances, contacting the dead, mediumship. You see a lot of old black and white photos with people that was all the rage across, not just in Europe. It hopped the pond and came here to America. Okay. And of course, the promise is we could speak to your loved one, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. What? No, if you hear a voice, if something appears and says, hey, I'm your Aunt Vera, or I'm Abraham Lincoln, no, it's a demon. The Bible's very clear. You're in heaven, you're in heaven, you're in hell, you're in hell, and you ain't coming back. Okay. And so if something does appear, even mimics this so-called loved one or historical figure, it's what the Bible calls a familiar spirit. It's a demon. Yes. Okay. So anyway, so this is the rage. Well, their son dies, and so she goes out in her grief, and she brings these people into the White House, and they start doing seances to contact her dead son. Oh, no. And then, Pastor Brandon, it never left. The very next administration you got, and this is in secular print. This is not a conspiracy theory. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln had multiple seances in the White House. Why? Because his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, they lost a son. And so she relied on the occult. He allowed it to happen. Abraham Lincoln.
No.
And so you're inviting this demonic activity, and it never left. You pick an administration.
Yeah.
So and then not only that, it's still in historical record. One of the most, watch this, haunted places in America. Now, of course, haunted. What's a haunting?
Right.
It's demons.
It's demons.
You call it ghosts, ghost adventures, ghost hunters, whatever. No, it's demon hunters, demon adventures. That's really what you're getting involved in.
Yeah.
But you know what the most, quote, haunted, to use their term, places in all of America is? The White House.
Oh, no.
The White House in Washington, D.C. You could take tours to go on these different, they call it, again, haunted, it's demons.
Okay.
And there are even secular people who visit the White House, and this has been going for decades.
Oh, no.
Some of them literally run screaming out of the White House because they see apparitions of different people, of different entities claiming to be this, whatever. It freaks them out.
Yeah, I bet.
So, and no wonder you inviting the occult, and it never left. Now, let's fast forward.
Okay.
And I'm just being fair. You know, people, oh, you're always picking on the Democrats. Well, whatever. I mean, I do like the phrase. I mean, you know, speaking of left out things, they left out a little letter that maybe it's Democrats, but anyway, but you look at their agenda, and it's definitely demonically inspired when they want to murder children and all kinds of stuff. But anyway,
exactly.
That's a side note. But let's go back to as recent as Reagan.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan and his wife, Nancy Reagan especially, and this is secular knowledge, she was heavy duty into astrology. And in fact, to the point where Reagan allowed her to seek astrologists to determine when was the best time to take a trip, foreign policy, if he was going to run again. And so let's just be honest. What is that?
Wow.
That's the occult, even with Reagan. I'm just being honest. So what follows the Reagan? You got Bush Sr., and then I'll fast forward, skip the Clintons for now, Bush Jr. Both of them, I got Bush Jr. on tape proving he was not a Christian. We got lied to with him. I got him on tape. He was interviewed after 9/11 by a newscaster and said, do Muslims and Christians worship the same God? On tape, Bush Jr. says, yep, sure do.
Oh,
and then he pressed it even further. He said, do Muslims and Christians get to heaven? Bush Jr. on tape said, yes, they do. They have different routes of getting there, but they all make it to heaven. Excuse me, you can't say that if you're a born-again Christian. So we got to do it by the guy. But both of those guys, Senior and Junior, are a part of the Skull and Bones Society.
Yeah, okay, I heard that.
That is an occult society that we bring out in our studies that is not from God. You might as well just say they're part of Freemasonry, which, by the way, we just recently released our mega Freemasonry study, Freemasonry and Satan's satanic order. But anyway, and so they're a part of a secret satanic society. All right, well, let's back up to the Clintons.
Okay.
What about the Clintons? Clintons, this is in secular print, man. Hillary would have also seances in the White House.
Oh, no.
And she claimed to be able to speak to Gandhi and Eleanor Roosevelt, among other dead people. No joke.
Wow.
And said that they give her advice. And things and this is in secular print. So she's got seances in the White House. Before that, I got on tape one of the people that was like a bodyguard for the Clintons back in the early days in Arkansas. And I don't know if the guy's still alive, because you know what happens with those people.
Right. They disappear.
Right? But on tape, he said one of his jobs was to keep a lid on what Hillary does during the weekends. And during the weekends, she goes out on tape. She goes out in the wilderness, and she's a part of a witch cult. She goes out there and does witch stuff, which, shocker, not a big surprise, right?
No, not at all.
Bill's not innocent. Bill, and this goes back to 1975. Bill and Hillary go to Haiti. I've been there before, and really did a deep dive on that place and the surrounding area, the Dominican Republic and that whole area. Heavy duty into voodoo.
Sure.
Voodoo is all about demon worship.
Yeah, okay.
And the whole goal is to get demon possessed so they could speak through you and give a word of knowledge and healing powers. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, very familiar.
That's going on in churches. That's a whole nother thing.
Sure.
And so he got there. They were a part of a voodoo ceremony, people cutting chickens' heads off. And this is secular print. And the people, of course, what happens is it invites demon possession. They start freaking out, and they're demon possessed. Bill's all excited. He's going, wow, this is incredible. And he basically says that after that experience with voodoo, that, quote, the Lord convinced him to run for election.
What?
Well, it's the Lord of Voodoo is what it was.
Right.
Right. So then you got, of course, Bush Jr. is already mentioned. And then who follows him? The Obama. Obama is on record as the most anti-God, anti-Christian in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And part of it is because of his behavior and things that were involving Satanism, which we bring out. That sounds like pretty crazy, but we bring it out.
Sure.
And I'll just give you an easy example of just that.
Okay.
I came out of Satanism, amongst other things, unfortunately. The number one law of Satanism is do what you will shall be the whole of the law. Okay. It's all about selfism. And that's being promoted across the planet, even in churches today. Satanism, the number one law.
Yeah.
But there's another law. It's called the law of reversal. Okay. And the law of reversal is an act of rebellion against God. Okay. So if God says something, you do the exact opposite.
Okay.
So if he says don't murder, you murder. If he says don't lie, you lie. If he says don't steal, you steal. And on it goes. He says don't commit adultery, you commit adultery. And so it's called the law of reversal in Satanism. You do everything the exact opposite.
Okay.
And it's not just the premise of rebellion. It's also they do their rituals backwards.
Oh, really?
Right? Yes. They speak backwards.
Oh,
they
wow.
walk backwards. Right? It's called the law of reversal. It's just straight up Satanism. These guys will tell you who they're working for if you have eyes to see, ears to hear, if you know anything about the occult. And I came out of that. And one of the things that's not by chance was the slogan that he picked to run on, right? And that was that phrase, yes, we can.
Okay.
Right?
Yes,
yes, we can. Yes, we can. And I kid you, it's going to sound crazy. It's going to sound like I got a tinfoil hat on, but I encourage your viewers to put it to the test, right? Record on your phone. Most people can realize that on your phone that you can hit a function and it'll reverse it for you.
Okay.
Right. So just right there. So record the phrase or go on the internet and have him say it, Obama, because he said it over and over again. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Play it backwards.
Okay.
You know what it says?
No,
Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan.
No, does it really?
Thank you, Satan. Dude.
Wow.
I at first I'm going, okay, come on, that's kind of wacky. Yeah. I tested it out myself. It's perfectly, thank you, Satan. And again, it doesn't make sense until you understand the occult. The occult will tell you who they're working for. Evil loves to brag. They'll do it to you in your face, but they do it in a secret way that only those who know the right symbols or the codes or the numerology understand what they're doing. So he told you who he was working for back in the day. That's one easy example. His wife, wink, wink. She brings in voodoo into the White House, right? She brings in voodoo in the White House, right? Marion, her mother, her dad was suffering. More than one time, she had voodoo Santeria, that is a branch of voodoo, into the White House, just like the Clintons, to bring healing. This is going on in the White House. Now, one of their buddies, the Obama's buddies, is Oprah Kenobi. Right, the biggest New Age priestess on the planet, we affectionately call her, and but even her admits that she gets, and this is secular information. She gets possessed.
Oh,
she invites demons to possess her to give her, listen, not only supernatural acting abilities, but when she goes before an audience, it will to be able to impact the audience. Right, this is secular print. Also, go back to the law of reversal. Okay, right. Of all names for Oprah to pick for her studio, you know what it is?
What is it?
Harpo, which is the reverse of Oprah.
Okay.
Oh, isn't that just a coincidence? No, it's not. It's a reverse. It's the law of reversal. These people tell you who they're working for if you have eyes to see. Now let's fast forward to Biden. Biden. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, a sign that you're in the wrong camp, and it's like, did people forget this? When he was running the first time against Trump, did anybody besides me notice that the witches and the Satanists were rooting for Biden? And they were performing rituals that was going against. Remember that? It's like
I remember that now. Yes, I remember that. Okay.
And so I'm going like, man, when you got the witches and the Satanists on your side, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
No.
And then did everybody forget this? It's still in print. They had a slogan, Biden-Harris, the first time. And did you see what it was? Dude, it's a pentagram. Right? The Democrat, it's a pentagram. They just altered it on the side. It's a pentagram.
Oh my goodness.
And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's in print. It's a pentagram. Then let's go back to another thing. I'm telling you, you gotta break out the calculator. These guys tell you who they're working for. Tell me this is by chance, right? Now, Joe Biden, this guy, even back then, he was already having troubles reading a prompter.
Okay. Yeah.
But of all, if it's like, did everybody forget this? And again, you got to understand, in the occult, numbers are big. They do rituals on certain days, certain numbers. In witchcraft, it's called the 3 is a big number, but so is in Satanism and Freemasonry.
Okay.
And it's called the power of 3. The symbol in witchcraft is called the triquetra, like 3 triangles coming together.
Okay.
And that's where we get the phrase still to this day. People don't realize they're quoting witchcraft. That 3 times a charm. Well, that's straight out of witchcraft. It's the power of 3. And they believe that you don't just say your spell once, not twice. It's on the 3rd time, 3 times a charm.
Okay.
Then that's when the power is released. And then if you want to put it in, quote, turbo mode, then you do your ritual 3 times, but with 3 witches. The power of 3.
Okay.
Right? So again, this is not conspiracy. So 3 is a very important number. But anyway, so let's go back to Joe Biden and his number that he advertised for people to text to donate or support. Remember what it was? It was 30330.
That's right. He couldn't even get it right when he said it.
Well, thank you. I'm sitting there going like, come on, throw this guy a bone. I mean, he's way worse today than he was back then. But hey, if you're going to ask him to repeat a number, do something like 1111. Maybe he'll get that right. But not 30330, whatever. No joke, right? So you bust out the calculator, right? Take the year that he was running, 2020. Divide that, divide that by 666. And what do you get?
You get the number then.
30330.
Oh, that's crazy.
Dude, what are the odds of that? That's not by chance.
No.
It's the occult. Most people don't get it because they've never been taught the occult. Numbers are big in the occult. Evil loves to brag. They will tell you to your face what they are doing, but most people don't catch it. Hitler wore occult symbols on the uniform.
Yeah.
But they didn't catch it because they didn't realize those were occult symbols. It's the same thing today. And that's why things are so messed up, Pastor Brandon.
Sure.
Because these guys are all involved in the occult. It's a Luciferian order. It's a counterfeit to Christ's coming kingdom.
Yeah.
And this is really what they're trying to install on the planet. They just relabeled it. But the good news is the Bible